Men, for some strange reason, think they need to do it all alone. What if you didn't? What does it take to seek help, to ask for help? Our guest today, Colin Bye, will help answer these questions and more. Welcome back to more Men Talking Mindfulness. Raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness. One reason that male suicide is still on the rise, especially here in the U.S., is because of isolation and loneliness. This false belief that there is power in the lone wolf. This false belief that there is power in the lone wolf is not helping us. The unwillingness to admit that we are struggling and need help, or the false bravado that you just need to tough it out. If you have been listening to the show for quite a while, you know that this is not the way to a better, more fulfilling life. Or if you are new to Men Talking Mindfulness, I know, right? Let us share a little secret with you. You don't need to be a tough man. Asking for help or admitting you need it is not weakness. It is the start of a whole new, healthier life. This is why we called in men's coach and founder of Manscending, Colin Bye. Welcome to the show, Colin. John, great to see you as well. Just 48 hours ago, John and I are working together in Colorado Springs. And here we are recording another episode. John, how are you feeling? How are things?
Oh, man, I'm doing well. Good to see you as well. And we've got Colin here for his second episode. Very excited to have you back here, brother. Just some real quick announcements. One announcement is that we just wrapped up our retreat. So if you go to our website, you'll still see it at the top, but we're not running that retreat now because we just ran it last week. But we've got a new 9-week live virtual meditation course coming up. We're doing one right now, but our next one starts June 23rd. To learn more about that, text MTM to 33777. And in addition to learning about that, you can learn about everything else that we are doing for Men Talking Mindfulness. You can also just head to mentalkingmindfulness.com. So that out of the way, we're going to just do our one breathing practice, and then we're going to get in this conversation with Colin. So yeah. Let's, yes, exactly. We're that excited too. And you and I both just shifted seats at the same time because we're that excited. So, all right, let's get grounded, and we're just going to do that by simply taking one intentional focused breath, and we're going to do that by exhaling, holding empty at the bottom. Nice deep breath into your belly first, then into your chest. Hold full at the top, and release, release, release. All right, there we go. Welcome again, and Colin, welcome to you, brother.
Hey, thank you. It is honor to be back.
It's good to see you. Good to have you back. So, since your last appearance on the show, what new insights have you gained about young men and their struggles with connection?
Oh, yeah,
We're putting you right in the spot, like right away, Colin. We don't messing around anymore.
You're seasoned. You're a seasoned
small
guest.
Talk. Raw and uncut, baby. No, that's what I'm all about. So I had the privilege of being able to support a couple of men and a couple of brotherhoods, specifically in a fraternity context, to build healthier, encouraging relationships with each other. And, I think there's a lot of focus on mental health today, and a large conversation going on around mental health, the mental health crisis, the challenge around mental health, and a lot of the language around it. When we talk about mental health, the first thing that comes to mind isn't actually what mental health looks like. It's what mental dis-eases look like, or mental challenges in terms of emotional dysregulation. We think about anxiety and depression and all these other labels that we have to describe what we're experiencing. And so, one insight that I found is there is a huge need for new language around mental health and around what it means to be well. Especially in the context of working with guys, often we think about health as a physical practice, but not recognizing that our emotions are part of the physical well-being of the body. One thing I like to say is, thoughts are the language of the mind. It's how we move through the world, how we describe what's happening, how we kind of get to know ourselves and make sense of the craziness that is living a life. And emotions are the language of the body. It's how our body as an organism speaks to us. And so learning to slow down and listen to what is being said, and even if we can't specifically say, oh, I'm noticing some frustration or anger or sadness or whatever it might be, even just being able to describe the sensation, I feel like hot in my chest or a tightness in my throat. These are all signals for our body that have a message and a reason behind it. So that's kind of one piece, is really focusing on creating new language and really developing a curiosity, not just into what's wrong, but also what we want. Like when we talk about mental health, what does mental health actually look like? What's the goal here? Same with emotional health, same with physical health. So that's a big piece. And I could just spitball on this for a long time. So if at any point you guys have another question, or
we've got a few other ones.
Yeah,
a couple.
I'd love to hear from you as well. There is one other thing that I do want to share though, which is around similar topic, mental health. But one insight I found just from my conversations with guys, especially guys aged like 18 to 22, so college age, young adults, is one of the obstacles that is often talked about in terms of mental health and mental well-being is stigma, right?
Yeah.
The fear of being judged for expressing vulnerability, for being honest about how we're actually doing. And the word stigma doesn't really connect with young people, at least those that I've spoken to. There's much more focus around trust, and they're connected, obviously. So one of the ways that my work is evolving and developing is really honing in on how do we create trust. Trust not just in other people, but also trust in ourselves. And that is also the heart of confidence for me. I'm kind of so I have a background in theater, and I'm a bit of a language nerd. And I'm always interested in, where do words come from? And confidence is one of those words. The root is from Latin confidus, or fidelitas, which is with trust. And so confidence is really just being able to trust yourself. So, if shit's hitting the fan, can you be confident? Can you trust that you're able to respond? Or if you're about to go onto a podcast or take a leap of faith, or even something as simple as, having the confidence to know that you'll go to the gym when you say you will. It takes small acts of faith and small wins, and actually paying attention to those wins to start to build that confidence. So those are some insights that I'm pulling.
Love it.
Yeah. Well, that's such a great point about confidence, and being with trusting yourself, and you bring up such a great point. Like, you can really begin to develop that self-trust, right? Or, your own trust, your confidence, right? Because that's what trust is. Or, with like taking these little small steps, like you said, like, you're going to say you're going to go to the gym at a certain time, then go to the gym. But also I think what can help you build that confidence and build into and taking those steps is like a collective, like is having a brotherhood, is having community, is having somebody holding you accountable to take those steps. I think tell me, so what, like, you working mostly with younger men, what are they kind of suffering with most often? You said you're working with college age people. We have a lot of our audience have sons or daughters that are age. So, what are some of the problems that you're seeing at this outside? With, I guess, confidence is probably one of them in this population that you're working with.
Yeah, it's a funny time to be alive, especially for younger generations. I think we face unprecedented challenges as a
Yeah.
species, and these are more strongly felt by those who are inheriting the challenges and the problems. And, a couple big things come to mind. So, one is there's a very clear, especially among men, economic challenge ahead. I mean, adjusted for inflation, younger generations make less while buying a house and affording education is just getting more and more expensive.
Right.
I read recently that for the first time in the history of the United States, a 30-year-old is on average earning less than their parents did at 30. And so in some ways, we're facing a breach in the social contract that if I put the work in, if I follow the path that has been given to me, which for many people is education and then working, family, and retirement, that if I follow that path, it will work out. And for more and more young people, it's getting harder and harder. I mean, even just the fact that minimum wage hasn't changed very much at all. Obviously, it's dependent on where you are in this country, while inflation is on the rise is evidence of that. So that's kind of one piece, is there's a fear about financial stability. And often when I talk about guys and their goals, there is a deep desire for freedom, specifically around financial, whether they're an artist and they just want to make music without having to worry about the cost of it and the cost of living, or maybe they want to have a family and that's their priority at some point, but also recognizing they want to provide their family a level of stability financially and the safety and security that comes with that. So economics is a big piece of it that I don't know if, at least not in the circles I operate in, if it's talked, if it's given as much appreciation as it should be. I mean, one thing for me personally as a younger guy is, our national debt is in the trillions and trillions of dollars, getting more and more. And no one seems to be worried about it actively. We think, oh, there's other bigger fish to fry. But that's just one thing that I know in the next 20, 30 years, like that's going to be a problem my generation is going to have to figure out.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm not an economist, so a lot of this, I'm not qualified to speak on solutions, etc. But that's just what's in the atmosphere, what's in the air. Another big challenge, and you kind of addressed this in the intro, is the social challenges. I mean, there's a recent State of American Men, which was published by Equimundo, amazing report if you haven't read it. And 2/3 of men ages 18 to 23 say that no one really knows me well. If you take that and also consider a Harvard study that has been going on for over 85 years on what is the key to a healthy and happy life, spoiler alert, it's quality relationships.
There you go.
There is going to be there currently is, and it's probably only going to get more intense, a rift in our ability to connect to ourselves, to connect to each other. And as we look at these large challenges that are becoming more and more global, look at the environment. The fact is, nobody can solve these issues alone. Robin Sharma has a quote that I love: "The bigger the dream, the more important the team." And I see my role in this as preparing men with the skills to show up, to work together, to solve these challenges, however they manifest in their communities and their country, and even on a global scale. And that takes new skills. So those are some of the big challenges. But just in general, there's a ton of pressure on young people, whether it's academic pressure, to get good grades. I mean, I work in colleges and universities a lot, so that's very present in many cases, but also pressure to figure it out, to figure life out. Because some guys are studying things that they don't actually want to pursue a career in. And so they graduate with this degree, and then it's like, okay, well, what's next? Where do I go from here? How do I live a life of purpose? And all of these questions for me come back to, well, you have to know yourself. And it's very hard to know yourself if you're not paying attention to what you feel. Because, I mean, do the things that excite you. But if you don't let yourself feel excited, because you've been ignoring your emotions because you've learned that they make me weak or they're a vulnerability, and it's going to be very, very difficult to figure out where to direct your energy. So that's really present.
I can attest to, studying something that you weren't really planning on making a career of. I have my undergrad and my master's in mathematics and operations research, and I use them to think analytically. But if anybody came up to me and said, hey, can you do this calculus or differential equations problem, I would have to definitely go back and review. But I also want to talk about the piece where you mentioned the 30-year-old now is not making what the 30-year-old 20 years ago was making, or 30 years ago. And I read this book called Generations, and I forget the author, but it was really eye-opening in that it explained why the various generations feel and express themselves the way that they do. And there's a lot of, from me, okay, for example, I'm a Gen X, right? And for a while there was like, oh, millennials. And then there was now there's oh, come on, Gen Z, get it together. But this book explains why the different generations are, including the greatest generation, including the boomers, including Gen X. And it really gives you an appreciation for why they are the way, quote unquote, the way they are. And one of the things that they spoke about was that very fact, the fact that the money isn't what it used to be, including accounting for inflation. But it also mentioned, the delay in launching, not the failure to launch, but the delay in launching. So like when I left home at 18 years old, and I went out and started to pursue a career. This day and age, there's a lot of 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds who are in college, but they're still staying at home. And then when they graduate college, they stay at home for a while. And I'm not saying that that's right or wrong, but sometimes that can prevent them from pursuing a career that pays as much as it may have otherwise. Anyway, that aside, coming back to that State of American Men, that Equimundo report, where they reported that 2/3 of U.S. men aged 18 to 23 feel that no one really knows them well. And given that statistic, what are some of the innovative ways you can think that we can address that feeling of isolation among men?
Yeah. The answers that come to mind are, from my perspective, pretty simple. And also, to address it, we also have to address the systems and the communities around men. So, I mean, one very simple example is for parents who, generally speaking, want their kids to do well, to succeed, whatever that means in this world and for them. There's an impulse to problem solve whenever something comes up. And what I'm hearing from guys, and also what I'm sensing that guys need, is a confidant, someone who they can go to, who isn't just there to, all right, there's a problem, like, let's fix it, here are the steps, let's get through this. But someone who is able to listen without judging them, who's able to offer empathy and then strategy. So that's like a very small shift, but it's a cultural phenomenon. I mean, we are rewarded for solving problems. We see it as a way of creating value, which it does, right? We do want to be able to solve problems, but I think we underestimate the value that's created by having a space for people to be honest without fear of judgment, without fear of having their reputation affected by it. And so in that vein, creating more spaces where that is possible, where men in particular, but also really anyone are able to show up, slow down, notice what is actually happening, what they're actually experiencing, and to share it with someone who will just listen and who won't immediately try to fix them as if they're like a problem to be solved, but are willing to be with them in the experience, whatever it is. Maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's fear about the future, maybe it's a challenge with a substance, or unsustainable behaviors. So those, like, that's the key piece here, is creating spaces for trust to develop. And that's another very fascinating excerpt from this study, is so many men's trust has been shattered, is a very dramatic word, but men are trusting less and less in institutions, in themselves, in each other, in other people. And so that's part of the work, is how do we restore trust? And it's not something that's very easy to do on our own.
Well, what do you do in with the spaces you work in, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's a community of like-minded people working together with you in manscending, which we're going to talk about a little bit later? Like, so what are some exercises or tools or ways of being that you utilize in order to create that trust and move forward with that trust and keep that trust as well?
Yeah. The framework that I use, I mean, I have a couple of different ways of articulating it, but at a basic level, there is a severe lack of self-compassion. We are all so hard on ourselves. We all, and I am generalizing here, we all have an inner critic that can be pretty brutal sometimes. There's a late Irish...
Here.
Yeah. Have you guys experienced that, perhaps?
Maybe never. I'm fucking perfect, dude. Like, what?
That's it.
Get out of here. Like, I don't have any problems. I'm going to be the toxic man right now. I don't have any problems. What are you even talking about? Confidence. Like, you see my muscles? I'm so confident. Look at, I'm so smart. Anyway, sorry, guys.
You're fine. You're just fine, Will. You're fine.
I'm the totem. I'm everyone. Everyone should look up to what I do. My example.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of guys, it's the concept of self-compassion. They probably have heard about it, but they've never thought about really applying it to themselves. And what does it actually look like? And if I've experienced this firsthand, but sometimes the hardest part is going through life and having an interaction that's really, small, offhand. Maybe I say something or I did something, and the mind just ruminates and ruminates and ruminates, and we just I've previously just spiraled in and analyzed the shit out of this one comment that I made. I still do that sometimes. So being able to recognize what's happening and then shift your focus, move your awareness to something else, ideally moving it away from what you don't want and toward what you do want. So developing a sense of self-compassion is key, but before we can do that, there's a couple of steps that need to happen. And so the framework is, if you want to love yourself, you have to be yourself. And if you want to be yourself, you have to know yourself. And so
Colin, you're dropping some fucking truth bombs here, man. I mean, like, goddamn.
Yeah,
and these are big, but keep going. This is awesome.
That's the thing. People are like, just love yourself. And most people, I mean, many people, and myself included, was like, well, what the fuck? Pardon my French. What the fuck does that mean? You know, how do I do that, right? Like, I wish I could just,
exactly.
Okay, I'm really nice to myself now. I'm very kind. I can just fail and keep going and be very awkward in a situation, curse on that podcast, and not think about it. I know we're uncut here. We're raw and unapologetic.
Yes.
He knows it.
And so now the same question is, okay, well, know yourself so that you can be yourself, so you can love yourself. How do I know myself? And I ask the question, well, how do you know anything? You pay attention. You listen to it. And for us, that means paying attention to us, to ourselves. And that means paying attention to what's happening in my body, paying attention to what's happening emotionally, which is very connected to that, and also paying attention to what's happening up here. What am I saying about myself? And the way that I support guys to do that, because often, you know, I don't have a ton of time to explore these different pieces. So I really try to deliver the most effective intervention or activity or experience as possible. Because I'm a big believer, you can't just hear about it. You have to experience it. Yeah, you have to experience what we're talking about to realize its power so that you're motivated to actually do the thing. It's like breath work or, you know, breathing. I hear the breath is the lever for the nervous system. It can change your state. You can calm yourself down. You can rev yourself up. You can rally with the breath. I'm like, okay, great. But now instead of saying that, what if I just took somebody through 5 minutes of breathing where they feel their energy rise and then we take them back down? That stays with them. And then they're like, oh, I've actually experienced this. So the practical activities like breathing exercises, like mindfulness practices, I do something called centering, which is priming for meditation, but it's priming for listening, to sense what's happening. Another one of these fun words, right? Sensitivity. Often seen as a negative
don't go down that
thing.
Path. Don't go down that path. We don't talk about sensitivity on this show.
What are you talking about, dude? Yeah, we gotta get rid of this guy.
We're on a sarcastic rant today. Sorry about that.
No, I'm here for anything.
That's not in my vocabulary. Anyway, teach us about sensitivity, Colin. I'll see if I like it.
Shifting from sensitivity, which can be seen as a liability, right? When we are affected by our experiences strongly, emotionally, and moving it into sensibility, which is our ability to sense. Instead of being affected immediately by what's happening, we feel it, we notice it, but it informs us. It informs our response rather than leading to a reaction. And as I'm talking, I'm sure you guys can get a sense, like, mindfulness is at the root of all of this, this ability to notice what's going on without needing it to be different. It won't change your situation. It will give you the space to respond to it with skill. That's the key here with everything I do. So one of those great practices, if you want to know yourself, what are your core values? What are the ideals that you prioritize? And we have values that we say are important, and then we have values that actually dictate our behavior. So, for example, one of my values is vitality. It's a core value. It governs a lot of what I do. Will this bring me more energy, or will this deplete my energy and reduce it? I don't love going to the gym. I really don't, which, you know, is a hot take in some circles and then very relatable in other circles. But I do it because it's aligned with vitality. Because I know if I do this thing, I'm increasing my energy capacity. I will have more energy. It's like making the battery bigger.
Right.
But here's the thing, if you don't know how to listen to yourself, if you don't know what feels important to you, it's going to be real hard to figure out what your values are.
Yeah.
And so when I do a workshop with a chapter in a fraternity, one of the first things we do, we practice breathing and centering, starting to bring the attention from the outside and inward. And then we go through a core values exercise and we figure out what really matters. And it's something a lot of guys haven't had the chance or space or invitation to think about, because we, at an early age, usually take on the definition of success from society, from our parents, from our school. And personalizing success, really asking ourselves, okay, what does success actually mean to me? That is really fundamental in understanding who you are and what matters to you. And so for me, like, success is living authentically, living with integrity. If I show up and integrity, another one of my core values, if I show up as best as I can and I'm honest about how I'm doing and I take care of my responsibilities, I follow through on the things I say I did, that's success in the long run. And the beauty of it is I don't have to postpone my satisfaction. I don't have to wait and say, oh, when I make X hundreds of thousands of dollars, when I have a family that looks like this, when I have a career that looks like this, then I will be successful. But it's a radical shift to saying, I can be successful right now if I know what matters to me and I'm acting on it. I'm living it. So
believing it.
That's one piece, like one very something that I start because it's a conversation that needs to happen, in my opinion. And unless someone is there to hold you accountable, it probably won't, at least not until much later. And core values are a helpful thing to know because they'll also change over time. Yeah. And you won't know that unless you are able to listen and sense what's going on in my life. Where am I experiencing excitement? What's depleting my energy? Where's the joy? Where's the fear? These are all points of data that many men, because we learn that being open and vulnerable, having emotions is a liability, we cut ourselves off from that extremely valuable source of information. And part of the work is being in a space where you can trust that if you go there, if you show that, you'll be okay.
Yeah. And when you do go there, believing what you feel. I think a lot of the time we have these core values that we say, like you said, we have ones that we live and then ones that we believe. And I think that's a key difference there. And coming back to the negative self-talk that so many of us have, the practice of noticing that negative self-talk, right? You talked about noticing it, being aware of it. Once we are aware of it, then how can we change it? What are some things that we can do to actually change that negative narrative for our audience?
Yeah. Awareness is such a huge first part. And like a very simple way to reinforce that is taking some time to journal, to get pen and paper and write down, how do I talk to myself when things go well? Am I encouraging? Am I celebrating? Am I criticizing? And then how do I talk to myself when things go poorly? What does that look like? And maybe even, who does that voice sound like? Who in my life, in my past, does that, where might that voice come from? So the awareness is one part. But once you have a sense, oh, you know what? I'm actually not as kind to myself as maybe I could be. There are a couple different ways to shift it. One important thing to know, though, it's not something that happens overnight.
Right.
I mean, if we look at the brain and how the brain works, I mean, this mysterious, maybe the most complex structure in the literal universe in terms of how it works and what it's capable of. When we think a certain way, when we do certain things, we are activating a pathway of neurons, of cells in our brain. And there's a saying around, how the brain changes and neuroplasticity. That's neurons that fire together, wire together.
Right.
And so if this is a pattern that you have been reinforcing for years, maybe even decades, it's going to be a superhighway. It will be so easy to have that thought, something little will happen, and I'll just say, you idiot, or you moron, whatever it is. And carving a new path through the jungle of your mind takes work, and it takes repetition, and it takes patience. And one way to do that is to, once again, shift your focus away from what you don't want. So I say, I'm an idiot when I mess up, for example, and shift it to, okay, well, what do I want to say instead? Maybe it can be a little lighter on myself, and maybe not something that, I wouldn't want to say to a friend of mine or my spouse if they mess up, or a partner. And so I might say, a personal example, when I screw up, you're so silly. It's like a little playful, like an 8-year-old, just something else, or you'll do better next time, for a less silly example, or so having a phrase or something to tell yourself that you want to replace that original thought with is important. Yeah. And then planting that phrase in as many places as you can throughout your life. Write it on a Post-it note and slap it on your computer. Put it on the mirror. Have a journal. Read it every morning. Record it. I mean, language is so powerful. And I'm a big believer that, you guys, we were actually talking about this before the stream started. You're reorganizing your closet because, environment matters. Environment is so important. Our mind is shaped by our environment. Yeah. But the clever mind can plan the environment. And so part of the work is planning your environment. For example, I had a client who wanted to wake up and meditate. I mean, he wanted to do 8 other things. I want to meditate, I want to journal, I want to do breath work, I want to do some push-ups. I was like, whoa, no. We are trying to redirect the path that you've been doing for many years. Start small. So that's another important note. Start small. He's like, okay, if you could just do one thing, what would it be? I would meditate. Great. How long would you meditate for? 10 minutes. I'm like, great, 2 minutes. Really make it so easy, as easy as possible to start, right? Just to start. And then you'd say, okay, well, how are you currently waking up? What do you do in the morning? Well, I wake up and I open my phone and I see everything that I've missed.
Yep.
It's like, okay, well, here's an opportunity. We're shaped by our environment. having your phone next to your bed within arm's reach, so it's the first thing you can look at in the morning and before you go to bed, a portal to all of the to an enormous amount of suffering and information and choices
and bad
just
habits.
habits that may not be serving you.
Right.
That's your environment. Of course it's going to shape you. So let's plan the environment. What could you do to shift the environment? Oh, well, I could move my phone into the other room. Great. Why haven't you done that? Well, because I use it as my alarm. Great. What's stopping you from getting an alarm? Like an actual alarm clock that people have used for decades before most of us switched to our phones. Oh, great idea. And he, that day, got an alarm clock, moved his phone. He doesn't sleep near it anymore. And he is many days into his new mindfulness practice, waking up. And that's like part of the work here, because going back to your previous question, people are tired. It is an exhausting time to be alive, even from just the decision fatigue, having to make so many decisions, that being able to simplify life is one of the greatest blessings we can give ourselves. And the key to that is making a choice that eliminates other choices. So moving your phone out of your room is a choice. Now you don't have to think about it. You don't have to choose, I'm getting out of bed, I'm not going to look at my phone. Instead, I'm going to sit here and meditate. My phone's right there. I could stop at any moment. Or like, I'm going to open my guided meditation. Oh, but I have 4 notifications. Let me check those first,
Right.
And so these are all like tools and mindsets that my goal primarily is to help people relax, to help guys relax.
Right.
Because it's hard to build trust. It's hard to build new habits. It's hard to think long term when our body is stressed out. And coming back to listening, most of us don't realize we have a baseline of, I'm stressed. And that's exhausting. And providing a way, a path, not the path, a path to relax, to use the breath, use the tools that everyone has. It doesn't matter where you come from, who you are, the levels of privilege you have. Everyone breathes. Everyone has a body. Using the tools we have to slow down, listen to what's needed, to down-regulate our nervous system, or if we're exhausted, to upregulate it if we need to rally for whatever reason. It's one of the greatest gifts I've given myself, practicing that, and an enormous source of joy for me is sharing it and using it to empower those spaces for growth, for healing, for connection, especially in the context of brotherhoods. And beyond that, even like athletic teams or other clubs, places where guys gather.
We just actually came back from a retreat. That's why I was out in Colorado, and all the skills you're talking about are the stuff that we bake into our programming. And it was nice to, we offer a lot of journaling, and we journal several times a day. We offer to our students several times a day, and some of them I remember one of the students like, oh, I'm not used to journaling. What do I write? It's such a powerful practice. In order to journal, what journaling does is, like you mentioned, just like it gets the thought out of our head. It kind of puts it on a piece of paper so we can actually take a look at it and also analyze it. And like, does this work for me? Does this thought work for me? Does this, can I implement this idea? What can I do to change? And it's really, the simple practice of, finding your breath, getting in your body on a daily basis, like it all just really starts to develop more of that confidence, like we really alluded to much earlier. And that confidence just is like starts a little flywheel, and then you start feeling a little better. And also there's a willingness to connect, because you also realize that, it's okay to ask for help, and also to seek that help. Well, what's you mentioned brotherhood. How is that different than connecting in like a regular group setting? Like, what is the deeper aspects of brotherhood that kind of take connection into a realm of what we're talking, or what brotherhood really is?
Yeah. The way that I think about it, friendship is a relationship that helps you feel better. Brotherhood is a relationship that helps you become better.
Yeah.
And so there's an element of trust that when you win, I also win.
Yeah.
And this is breaking down one of the common misconceptions, or let me put it this way. One of the qualities of traditional masculinity that isn't serving us anymore is that being a man is a zero-sum game. The more man I am, the less man you are, or vice versa, right? If I put you down and I make myself look stronger, more capable, more competent, I'm winning and you're losing. And that's the game of being a man that is playing out in schools, in boardrooms, in where men are. This is happening, or at least
Yeah.
it is a tendency that needs to be consciously diverted, and reimagining brotherhood as like bringing in the quality of family that's inherent in the name, right? Like, oh, my brother. Well, it doesn't necessarily mean we came from the same place, right? But it means it's inheriting the attitude of what it means to be family. That we're in this together. When you succeed, I succeed. And, another way that I like to think about it, and that I challenge a lot of the chapters I work with, when I was going through my fraternity experience, the metaphor was like, brotherhood is a chain. And a chain is only as strong as the weakest link. And so part of being a brotherhood, part of being on a team, is figuring out who's the weakest link and how do we either break them and move on, or make them strong enough so that they can keep up. And I think that is it's served us, especially in settings where men like have to work together and the stakes are high. And I'm sure, you might be able to speak to this, John, having been in the military. It's helpful to know who you can count on and making sure everybody on your team is able to perform in the way that is needed as the team to achieve an objective. But it's also brings to mind an element of restriction, of hardness and coldness, and can lead to really unhealthy practices like hazing, right? Like, who can take it? Who can take the joke? Who can take the handle of alcohol and chug it in a forest and make it back home? Yeah. Don't get me started.
Really quick.
And
that is, in your mind, that's brotherhood. Is that correct? So, like, again, distinguishing between the two, brotherhood and friendship, or brotherhood and community. Friendship can make you feel better. Brotherhood can make you be better. But, am I understanding you correctly? Brotherhood can be a double-edged sword. Am I understanding that correctly?
Totally.
Okay.
In the sense that I think there is a mature form of brotherhood and a less mature form of brotherhood. And that's dependent on the maturity of the men themselves. So it's very hard to have a mature brotherhood if the individuals in the brotherhood aren't behaving or focusing on their growth, or have the support and the guidance and the mentorship to show them what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a well-integrated, competent, compassionate, effective leader in the sense of manhood? Somebody who's able to protect, to support, but in a way that's not oppressive or disrespectful. And, you know, that in my mind, that immature tends to be in the metaphor of like a chain, right? And there's a rank, who's on top, who fits where in this hierarchy. And so what I invite the men and brothers that I work with to reframe their conception of like, what is a brotherhood? It's not a chain, it's a net. It exists to uplift, to catch you if you are falling. And it's not just one man with a link above and a link below. It's a man with a literal network of support. And those men are connected to other men. And the reality of once again, in my experience, of a fraternity chapter, you aren't going to love every guy in the chapter.
Yeah.
I had 3 to 5 guys. They were my guys. They were the men that I counted on when I went through a really difficult breakup in college. They were there to catch me, to support me. And for me, that's part of what brotherhood's about, is seeing yourself as part of a net. And one thing that I emphasize is that the strength of a brotherhood is not the strength of a link in the chain. It's not the strength of the individual brothers. It is the strength of the relationships between the men. When you have men who are connected to each other, who trust each other, who support each other, who hold each other accountable, and that's a whole topic on its own. Like, what does that mean? How do we do that? That's a healthy brotherhood. Because the hard reality is things suck sometimes.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
We are gonna mess up big time. Who's there when we do? Or do we just get dropped as the link that's broken?
We have a saying, actually we have a law, quote unquote, in the Navy that's very similar to that. It's the 5th law of the Navy is, on the strength of one link in the cable dependeth the might of the chain. Who knows when thou mayest be tested, so live that thou bearest the strain. But I love the analogy of changing that analogy, or rather the thought of changing that analogy from the chain to the net, and all supporting one another. And I also, I've always used the word brotherhood. I mean, we in the SEAL teams we have an acronym for it, LLTB, long live the brotherhood. And I do feel that we are a brotherhood, but there's definitely times that brotherhood is immature, and identifying when we are being immature as a brotherhood, whether it's a SEAL team, whether it's in a fraternity, whether it's just amongst a bunch of guys, identifying that maturity level and what's that doing to us as a brotherhood, but then what's it doing to us as individuals. I think that's critical. I don't really have a question here, but I just thought that was really profound, Colin. And you, like Will said, you're dropping some serious knowledge bombs on this episode, man.
Well, I have a question. So when someone, you have a guy come in and he is part of this brotherhood, or the guys are already working with it within this brotherhood. Like, so how are they changing because of the support of other men that are helping them to be better? Like, what's like, not just, the actions and maybe the changes they're bringing in their life, but also how is that confidence, I'd imagine, that's coming through that brotherhood, how is that manifesting in their lives as well?
Great question. So when I do work with a group of men or even an individual man who is looking to really step into their full potency, to maximize the energy they have and also their ability to direct it at any given target or goal or mission or vision or dream, whatever that might be. I have like short-term wins and then long-term wins. So the short-term wins, when I'm working with a chapter, I do a workshop called Building Brotherhood. And I go in and take this group of men who is a brotherhood, or who are a brotherhood, and I really help them feel connected and integrate as a brotherhood. And I give them a charge at the end and hold them accountable to create a set of agreements that they as a brotherhood agree to follow. So that's kind of a long-term shift. And so over the months, I work with them, and I'm just texting. We have like a group chat. I had a chapter recently. It was just a beautiful moment where I was, we were in this big circle at the end of this experience, and I said, we started working on these agreements, writing them down. Be open and transparent in your communication. Practice being kinder to each other, whatever they are, right? And I asked, who's a man willing to lead this effort? One guy stepped forward. 2, 3, 4, 5 guys stepped into the circle. I was like, hell yes! Like, this is what it's about.
Yes.
And so just having, a group text with these guys and following up and working on them to refine and share these, and then hold the brother accountable, make sure they're shared when new members come in. So that's like one example of long-term shift, right? Because as I go through all of this, I really try not to fall into the trap of moralizing maturity. You're a better person if you're more mature. You're a better brotherhood if you are more mature.
That's the self-esteem trap, right? I mean, self-esteem is a trap, and one of the reasons it's such a trap is because in order to establish and experience self-esteem, you must push other people down. You know what I mean? So when you're always like comparing yourself to other people, it's like, oh, well, I'm more mature than you, so therefore I'm just a better person than you. It's like it doesn't help anybody, including the
zero-sum game that Colin
right, zero-sum game. But can continue, Colin. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And well, actually, I lost my train of thought.
I know. I fucked up. I'm sorry. I screwed you up.
No. You're good.
Well, I'll tell you what, Colin. If it pops back into your mind, that's great. But Will and I, we've got our questions that we've gone through. But as we come to the end of the episode, what is something, or is there anything that we haven't discussed yet that you want to make sure our community hears, your community hears? What's that one thing that you really feel is important that we have not discussed yet?
It goes back to, Will, your original question, because I shared the long-term shifts. The short-term shifts, if a man learns how to hold himself upright, posture matters. Our body tells a story that our mind listens to, whether we're conscious of it or not.
Boom.
So
this is great.
Being able to hold yourself with dignity, and this needs to be intentional, because once again, we're shaped by our environment, and our environment is a lot of this. It's a lot of this. It's a lot of this. And so many of us are collapsing forward, and the opposite of collapse is integrity. So standing with integrity.
For those who are listening to the episode and didn't see what Colin was doing, he was hunching basically over his phone. He was hunching and typing over his keyboard. He was hunching and driving. So there's a lot of that hunching and really not holding ourselves upright and properly and with some type of standards. So sorry, just to jump in there and let our listeners know.
I'll just say it also closes the heart space, closes our lung capacity. It literally depresses our spine, which starts to depress our energy. But keep going, Colin.
Yeah. Preach. I'm all I'm a big believer in posture.
Me too.
Because I mean, I have a background in acting, and if you're trying to play a character, one of the questions is, well, what do they look like physically? If they're a king, how do they stand? It's going to be different than a burnt out businessman or whatever it is. So notice the story that your body's telling and reset, find center, bring those shoulders over the hips, the ears over the shoulders. So that's one piece. Breathing through the nose. Another, like the most leverage you can get out of the smallest change is to just close your lips and keep your teeth apart. You will be improving the amount of oxygen delivered to every cell in your body. So that's another adjustment. And then the last one, and this ties to your final question, practice curiosity. Practice curiosity. Get interested. Stay curious. We live in a very judgmental society. We are very judgmental towards ourselves. There's a lots of good, bad, right, wrong. It's about what's working, what's not working. And curiosity is the antidote to judgment. It's also a practice. So for any adults listening, if you have young people in your life, practice curiosity. For any young people out there, my guys, practice curiosity. And there are many ways to do this. And at the heart of almost all of them is mindfulness. Listening, observing, sensing without judgment. So I would say that's like the key here. If you can stand upright, breathe through your nose, and get curious about what's happening right in front of you, right around you, right within you, you are on your path.
Yeah.
You will find your way.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to step into that curiosity too. You can't just live in your head and keep questioning and keep investigating. But what's that step after you've kind of lived in that curiosity? Is going to be take that action, take that risk, in order to transform or change or connect in a more meaningful way. But it's a curiosity. I'm a very curious person, but like I start tinkering around with stuff, or I start trying new things or going new places and see what happens. And by doing that, I just build more courage, more confidence, and just really get to see what I'm made of when I do those things. So, Colin,
who you are.
Exactly. And that curiosity is wired into every single one of us. I mean, without it, like, we'd still be living in caves, right? We'd still be, eating the same shitty food or something like that, because we never left the cave. But because of curiosity, like, we're look at the world we're living in now because we started asking different questions. And maybe you can ask, as your listener out there, what questions could you ask, that are going to lead you into new places and create new connections. So
speaking of curiosity, Colin, for those who are curious about manscending or what it is you're doing, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you, man?
Check out our website, manscending.work. It's .work because it takes work.
It takes work.
It takes fucking work.
And you can follow us on Instagram @manscending.
Love it. Love it.
There is one last piece that I think is really important to mention.
Yeah.
And that is that having the space, time, and opportunity to really get curious is a privilege. And while it's available to anybody, we're in a society where sometimes circumstances can keep us running, and keep us from down regulating, especially if we don't know how to do that effectively. That makes it more difficult for some than others. So just something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Well, let's down regulate right now. And Colin, I neglected to ask you this at the beginning. I know you're a practitioner and obviously a teacher, and you learned this last time. What we'd like to do is basically put our guests on the spot. No, we don't. We like to ask them beforehand, but I'm going to put you on the spot. If you're comfortable being put on the spot, would you like to lead our closing practice here?
I'd be honored.
Right on, man.
How much time we got? A minute, two?
Just take maybe 2-3 minutes. Just
Perfect.
nice and easy, man.
Yeah, let's get centered. Start with the body. Put your feet flat on the floor. Sit in the center of your seat. Bring your shoulders over your hips, so you're not leaning forward, you're not leaning back, you're centered. And then bring your ears over your shoulders. Your head isn't forward, your head isn't back, it's centered. Let the chin be parallel with the floor. Settle. Now let's center the breath. Take a full, easy breath in through the nose and easy out. We'll take 3 more, breathing in and out. Let go of any expectations you have for the rest of the day as you breathe in. Release the day you've had already. Let it be in the past. 4th breath, breathe in. And release any obvious tension in your body. Hold your breath empty. Wait until you feel a natural desire to breathe. This will balance the gases in your blood, allow more oxygen to be released into the tissues. And when you feel that desire, quietly and naturally breathe in and out through the nose. We've centered the breath, the nervous system, we've centered the body. Let's center the mind by taking it out of the past, out of the future, and get curious about what you're experiencing right now. Do you feel the sensation of sitting down? Do you feel the floor beneath your feet? Do you feel the air against your skin? Do you notice any sounds? Do you notice any tension? How about any emotions? Do you notice an absence of tension, an absence of emotion? That's okay too. Let your eyes relax, let your jaw relax. And for just a few moments, practice being you without an agenda, without needing to change anything about yourself. Just breathe easily and be a human being, not a human doing. You can bow your head to just honor yourself for showing up to this moment so that you can better show up, better respond for anything that life throws at you. And if you'd like, you can bow a little bit deeper if you have any greater belief, virtue, value that you want to honor. And let that go. Slowly open your eyes. And here's the hard part. Keep part of your awareness inward. Notice what's inside as you come back into the world. That's the real practice. Thank you, guys.
Awesome, Colin. Thank you, man. Fantastic meditation. I love the focus, and we'll can attest to this on the body, the nervous system, and then the mind.
Yeah, right.
That's how I've started doing my meditations, is settling the body, then the nervous system, the mind. And the way that I remember that is BNM. So body, nervous system, mind. But BNM is be now, man. Be now.
I like that.
So,
yeah.
Colin, been fantastic having you back, brother. I love what you're doing. Let us know how we can support you in manscending and any other way that we can support you. Fantastic nuggets of wisdom that you've shared with us today. And man, love what you're doing. So, Will, anything?
Thank you.
No, just thank you again, Colin. It's great to have you back on the show and complete our conversation that we started last year. And I love to see you. I mean, you're growing as a person. Like I was like, fuck, this is the same guy I saw like 8 months ago. Like you just like you look different. You look more alive. You actually like look more confident, more grounded in what you're doing. And
not that you weren't before.
Yeah, no, yeah, but hey, I'm growing too. We're all growing. We're all growing. You know, we're all growing for sure. But I love I can hear it in what you're saying, and it's so clear how you're helping and what you're doing in order to help. And thank you for the work that you're doing, because at all ages, all levels, people need to hear this. And I think it was very helpful for a lot of our audience. Usually polls or like demographics like 35 to like 60. So it's nice to hear what the population you're working with and what they're dealing with, because some of those parents might not be aware of what their kids are going through. So we appreciate that. And I mean, I think that's it. I mean, hey, mentalkingmindfulness.com. We have a meditation course starting on June 23rd, a summer program on Sunday. Class is going to be in the morning. So look for more information on mentalkingmindfulness.com and join that 9-week live virtual class to help you create a consistent meditation practice.
There you go.
Colin, yeah.
Deep gratitude from my end as well. Thank you, guys.
Back at you, brother. And deep gratitude to our community. If you're listening to this for the first time, please like, share, subscribe on all the different platforms, and let us know what you need to hear, what you want to hear from us and our guests. Colin, you've been fantastic. And until next time, everyone, take care. Peace.
Take care. Peace, everybody. Thank Colin. Thank
you for joining us today. We hope you walk away with some new tools and insights to guide you on your life journey. New episodes are being published every week, so please join us again for some meaningful discussion. For more information, please check out mentalkingmindfulness.com.